With Halloween Horror Nights 2025 fully in swing, I thought I would put together some tips and tricks for brand new people to the event or even seasoned veterans. This is just my general tips and tricks for this year's event, with going multiple times already this year. With that, I think the easiest one to start off with is definitely Stay and Scream. Stay and Scream, for seasoned veterans, obviously will know, is where you get into the park early, say through a day ticket, through an annual pass, or something we'll talk about in just a minute that you can add on to your Horror Nights ticket. And you go up to stands. It's a little different this year. That's why I thought we'd talk about it. Go up to stands. You'll get a wristband this year. That wristband will allow you to roam the park during its operating hours of the day. That's usually around to 5 o'clock every day. And then as it's transitioning to Horror Nights, you will still be allowed to roam the park, and even houses will start to open. The reason I think it's so good to do this is because, obviously, if you have an annual pass, it's a no-brainer. If you have an annual pass, you should always be doing Stay and Scream if you're planning to go the full night. You can get in some really early houses before the event even technically starts. Some houses open as early as like 5:15. Some as late as like 6 o'clock as the event is getting closer to actually starting. Just check those times. They have different opening times for each house. But obviously, no reason you don't want to get in those lines early. There'll be less crowds. You'll get into it right as it opens, and I just think it's so useful to do. The changes to Stay and Scream this year seem really good. Obviously, being able to roam the park and head back to those back houses first instead of doing the front houses. But the one thing I wanted to talk about with Stay and Scream, if you are visiting us or you are, only going for one night and you don't have an annual pass, you don't want to buy a day ticket and be there all day, Universal does offer something that's called Scream Early Ticket. So this is an extra ticketed onto your Horror Nights pass. It is $60, and, well, it's starting from $60, so it's probably more on busy nights like Halloween. You can get into the park at 3 p.m., and then at 3 p.m., you can roam the park. You can do rides or anything else you want to do during the normal operating hours. Then before that 5 p.m. close, make sure you go get your wristband. Then you can start your Horror Nights night. I do think this is worth it if you are only going one night, if you don't have a day ticket or a annual pass, just because you'll get so much done in this first hour and a half before the event fully starts, especially if you get in lines in the right spot. Speaking of which, we're going to head to the back of the park. My number one suggestion with Horror Nights is heading to the back first. Whether you're doing Stay and Scream, whether you are just showing up right at the gates open, whether you get in there a little bit late into the night, I always suggest heading towards those back houses first, especially if you're getting there at opening or for Stay and Scream. Most people are going to hit those 4 houses at the front this year. They're all in the back lot area. And especially Five Nights at Freddy's, Terrifier, going to be very popular this year. And I understand the anticipation of wanting to go do that first. Like that's, I'm going to get in the big line first and get it done. But if you head towards the back with Stay and Scream, you can probably get 3 to 4 houses done before the event even starts. That's always my suggestion with every year. Even if you're showing up at opening, those back houses are always going to have significantly less of a line than going to those front 4 where a lot of people will just run to first. So my suggestion, head back, do Dolls, do Gulkin, do Fallout, and do Hatchet and Chains. You can probably get them done very quickly. Then at the end of the night, you can end your night towards that front area. Yes, you might still have to wait in some lines towards those front areas, but I would just make sure we are getting those back houses done early, because you will have no wait and you'll definitely be able to do a lot of them very quickly. And on to one of my number one tips for this year's event, and this is really for any event around Florida or any food festival at any theme park. One thing I always try to say, even though I give you a rating on whether or not I like something, whether or not I would get it again, everyone's going to have their opinions on food, and some people are going to like things that other people don't like. But if you want to try something, I would try it. So don't go on a food blog, don't go on a YouTube video, and take on what they say as the fact. Obviously, there are going to be fan favorites of the year, like the cheese stick this year is definitely popular, and I personally really liked it. But if there's something that you want to try, and people have been kind of mixed reviews about it, I would say still go for it. You might like it, you might like it more than people. And even if you don't, honestly, I feel like Horror Nights is one of those places where you can try a different kind of food or try something really weird and it not be that punishing. It feels like it's part of the atmosphere to try weird food. So again, if you're on the fence about something, I would always just try it if you want to try it, even if you've heard negative things about it. And one other thing that I really feel like people miss out on with Horror Nights is the scare zones. Obviously, they're walking paths, you're kind of walking through them a lot, but I feel like a lot of people walk very quickly through them and they're just trying to hit their houses. And I feel like that's definitely a waste in this year's event. Last year, on the other hand, I mean, you could skip the scare zones last year, but this year the scare zones are really solid, so I would make sure you're spending some time in each of the scare zones. My personal favorite is Cat Lady of Crooked Lane. I think it is really solidly done, has a lot of great costumes, and that's the case for all the scare zones. I mean, the makeup work this year and costume work really hit a new time high, I feel like, for me personally, especially with scare zones, and there's just so many around the park that, again, I just want to emphasize to stay a little bit of time inside those scare zones. Try to enjoy the sets and the scares and all that good stuff, because I think sometimes they can be as fun as the houses if you really give them a chance. And one thing regarding merch for this year's event, merch, hit or miss, whatever you feel about it, whether you like things, you don't like things. One suggestion I always give is to get it at the end of the night and or get it on a day that you are not at Horror Nights. So say you're on vacation or say you're a pass holder and you only have one night there. If you're a pass holder, go to the tribute store during the day. It is open during the day. You should not be buying merch at HHN. That's just because you're going to be carrying around bags then throughout the night. And unless you have a backpack, it's just kind of obnoxious to walk through houses with multiple bags on you. And it just becomes more of a burden than anything. So my biggest suggestion, if you can, come back to the resort another day. They even have a lot of the Horror Nights merch at the front store in City Walk. Not all of it, so keep that in mind. Definitely make sure you get anything you really, really want. But if you are only going a single day, let's say really try to hold out shopping. See what you want, but buy it at the end of the night. Buy it before you're doing your last house or right after your last house. Do one of those two. It'll make you feel less burdened throughout the night, and you won't be carrying bags throughout the whole event. And a quick bonus tip that's not included on our 10, just make sure we're staying hydrated, guys. Honestly, Horror Nights is probably one of the warmest events, even though most of it is after dark. It is egregiously hot out. It is humid. There's a lot of people around you. Your adrenaline's pumping. Just make sure you're drinking a lot of water. I always suggest buying a freestyle cup at Universal. It's a fairly decent deal, and you get refills throughout the park at all the freestyle machines. I will say one complaint though, those freestyle machines never have ice, so keep that in mind. There is some that do have ice, so you're just gonna have to look around and find some. But again, make sure you're drinking water. Alcohol doesn't count, so just make sure you're drinking water as you're walking around. You will be sweating a lot for the most part, unless you're coming like way later in the season, end of October. Maybe it'll get a little cooler, but still be drinking water. This next tip is going to sound a little confusing, so I'm going to try to break it down to you the best I can, but it's about monitoring lines throughout the night. So it sounds a little bit weird, but I got to be honest, Horror Nights lines most of the time are not true at all. So if you see a line that's 2 hours, there's a very good chance it could be more, it could be less, but it's probably not 2 hours. They sometimes overestimate things to express. Sometimes they underestimate and it really hurts you. So the best suggestion I can have is to monitor the lines throughout the night. So if you see a house that just dropped down to 25 minutes, wow, that's awesome, but it's across the park, I would not go to that line. By the time you get to that line, everyone else that was closer to that line saw, oh, it's 25 minutes. Let's go do this house real quick. It's gonna be longer than 25 minutes by the time you get in line. They don't reset the lines very often, so it will still say 25 minutes. You'll wait an hour and a half. So my best suggestion I can give is, unless you're right next to a line when it says, oh, it dropped down to 10 minutes, dropped down to 25 minutes, I would not go into that line, but I would monitor the lines throughout the night. Watch your phone a lot. This could take some practice, so this is something to practice throughout the times you go to HHN. But watch the lines. If you see a line that's been at 60 minutes, let's say for 30 minutes, or even longer than 60 minutes, let's say an hour and a half, so 90 minutes, but it's been at that wait time for about 30 to 40 minutes and it has not moved, there's a very good chance they're getting ready to reset that line, and it's probably going to drop. Especially with a lot of the original houses, those lines can drop a lot more than the IP houses. I would say the IP houses a lot of times are fairly true, but again, you're going to have to monitor lines. You can get good at seeing where the line is and see how long that is, but it's kind of hard to explain. It's something I've picked up on the last couple years, especially last year. I started getting very good at managing to get into lines when they said 90 minutes, and I only waited about 25 minutes. So again, this is just a broad suggestion. This is not something that everyone's going to be good at, but I would always suggest if you see a line drop to 25 minutes, don't ever run to that line unless you're right there next to it. Let's say you're at Gulk and you see Fallout go to 25 when you're walking outside, run to Fallout. You will probably wait a 25-minute wait. But if you're at Fallout and you see Grave of Flesh drop down to 10 minutes, you're not going to make it up there with 10 minutes remaining. So just, again, make sure you're watching lines, make sure you're using kind of your intuition with that. But again, this is not something everybody's going to be able to pick up on. And with this year's event having so many big IPs, another tip I'm going to give you is, I know those IPs are tempting. And for a lot of people, obviously Five Nights at Freddy's is a massive deal, and man, it is a great house. Same with Terrifier. There's a lot of great IPs this year. But with Halloween Horror Nights specifically, I always think their original houses usually beat out their IP ones. Not completely, but I definitely usually think they're a more fun experience walking through for the first time, because IP houses, you can kind of guess what you're getting into. Originals, you kind of have a vague understanding, but you aren't going to fully understand what you're getting yourself into. And I think that ends up making a lot of the original houses significantly more fun and sometimes very scary, because you don't really know what you're getting yourself into. So my suggestion is always make sure you're doing all the original houses throughout the night. Obviously pick your favorite IPs, make sure you get those in. It's very easy to get 8 to 9 houses in a night, as long as it's not crazy busy, as long as you're optimizing time and you're not just sitting around. But again, make sure you get into those non-IP houses. They're really great this year. Another little bonus tip for you throughout this video too is go over to Spotify, go over to Apple Music, anywhere you get your podcast, and head to Discover Universal. They do a really great series every year, doing some like anthology podcasts for the year's event. They have, I believe, about 4 out this year. I hope they release a few more, but there's one for Artista that is kind of the main one for this year's event. It ties in a lot of scare zones. It ties in kind of the whole event to it. There's a Cat Lady of Crooked Lane one that just kind of reads off some of the things, but the Toxic 20s one is also really great. The Grave of Flesh one gives you a little bit more background onto the house. So I always suggest listening to these. They'll give you a little bit more insight onto the event. You can listen to them while you're there in lines. I love listening to them first time. Like I listened to Grave of Flesh in line when I was waiting for it my first time. Just make sure you have enough time to listen to it, because it's really fun to move from the story into real life that is the story you were just listening to. So I just make sure you're listening to those. I would love for Universal to continue to do them, so I want them to do good for them. But back to some of the IP houses. Obviously, Five Nights at Freddy's seems to be the house this year. There's always one house every year that's got the most ridiculous line you've ever seen. It's always at like 2+ hours, and you're always like, man, I don't want to stand in the 2+ hour line. And I do get that. But my suggestion here is, at the end of the night is your best time to hit houses. Make sure you're staying until at 2 o'clock, especially if you're only coming once. That is going to be your prime time. From about 12:30 to about 2 o'clock is the prime house dumping time. My suggestion this year is to head up towards those front houses and dump those lines quick. I would suggest doing Grave of Flesh up the front, Artista. You can definitely hit WWE without a line towards the end of the night. Those 3 around 12:45, 1 should have almost no line at all. Then Terrifier should slow down, but the one that again won't slow down is Five Nights at Freddy's. So if possible, get into it at the very end of the night. We've done that multiple times already this year, where we get into it right before it's about to close to get a run in on it. We only wait about 25 to 30 minutes each time because there's no express coming through because it's already after 2, so no one else can get in line. I will say one bad part about this: when you hit your last house of the year, a lot of times scare actors stop showing up as much in the houses, but Five Nights at Freddy's comes with the unique benefit as it has a lot of animatronics and a lot of automatic scares, so you don't end up missing out on as much as some other houses like Terrifier or stuff that has a lot of Art the Clowns that you're going to miss. So again, I suggest doing Five Nights at Freddy's at the very end of the night. You can get in line until literally 1:59 until it turns 2 o'clock. So if you can help it, I would just try to avoid it until the very end of the night. And this is one of my bigger personal suggestions because I know not everyone will agree with it, but I would highly suggest getting in both shows this year. So this year's event has 2 shows. We have had 2 shows in the past, but the last couple years we have missed both shows because of the projection equipment on the lake being broken. Last summer, we did have the introduction of the brand new Universal nighttime show that is over on the lake in Universal Studios, but we didn't get a Halloween Horror Nights one. Previous years, we had a show called Ghoulish. There was also another one before that that wasn't great, but we had one called Ghoulish. Midway through the season, it got broken due to a hurricane coming through and damaging projection equipment. Ghoulish was literally probably one of my favorite theme park nighttime shows. I love it so much. I think it's such a vibe. And this year, luckily, we got it back. We got Hauntophonic, a Ghoulish story. It's very similar to Ghoulish when it was here. It's got a couple different songs in it, some different visuals here and there, but relatively, it is the same with a lot of enhanced effects that they've added with the new nighttime show there at Universal Studios. I think it's a great time. It shows every night from 9 to 10 to 11 to 12. So those are those last show times. So it's 9, 10, 11, 12. Those are your show times. Then there's obviously Nightmare Fuel. Nightmare Fuel is like the show. Even though I love Hauntophonic, if you can't get in both, make sure you're watching Nightmare Fuel. Nightmare Fuel is the show. It is very good, has great stunts. It just is a massive vibe. So make sure you're getting it in. It's a circus themed again this year. It's similar to last year, but it's a continuation of last year. So if you came last year to the circus, this is Circus of Decay this year. It's the same story, but further into the loops. So just make sure you're getting it in. Those show times are currently 8, 9:30, 11, and 12:30 is going to be your last show. Again, try not to miss either of these shows, but again, if you need to miss one, I would miss Hauntophonic and go watch Nightmare Fuel just because it's so good. But again, I really suggest trying to get both in this year and weave it in. I mean, you can weave Hauntophonic into you getting some food. You can go stand out there and watch it with food. And with me talking about trying to make sure you get both shows in, comes into my final tip for this year. And this is, I would argue, my biggest one. And this one is going to kind of be indifferent. I mean, to some people, it's going to help, but some people, it's just going to make them upset. So we'll see. I would really suggest about doing 2 nights this year. If you are a local, obviously, that's a lot easier than if you're not. Just because there's so much stuff this year. So if you can help it, if you're a local, or even if you're coming down for a few days or something, I would suggest doing 2 nights instead of getting Express. Obviously, Express will help you out through your night, but one of the biggest things people don't plan for is the shows. I mean, those are going to take them some time. You're going to be eating food. That's going to take up some time. So even with Express, sometimes people struggle to get in all 10 houses. If you have 2 nights at the event and you relatively know how you move around the event and you take some of my tips into actual practice, you're gonna have a great 2 nights and you'll feel less stressed, you'll feel less like you're running around, and I think at the end of the night you'll feel more completed. Because what a lot of people do is, even if they get Express, they don't end up doing all the houses, and then they just kind of feel bad that they spent all that money to get Express. I mean, you could buy 2 tickets for that price. So I would just suggest, if you have the time, if you have the money, try to get 2 nights in this year with Halloween Horror Nights. The mixture of the shows, the new street experiences that are like mini scare zones, and all the great scare zones around, especially with food being definitely a high point this year. Okay, at least for me, I think this is some of the best food they've ever had at the event. You're gonna want to spend some time eating, and it's nice to not have to feel stressed out about eating or trying to take food into lines or trying to get drinks really quick because you're trying to get in a lot of houses. But again, that's just my personal suggestions. This is my tips video. This is all what I would do if I was, new to the event, or I only had one night and trying to optimize my night. I would love to hear some more tips down below if you're a seasoned veteran or you just now started going this year. If you have any tips for people, I would love to hear them down below. So I hope everybody's enjoying this year's event. I really think it's really solid. I'm loving the scare zones. I only have a couple houses I don't love as much, but this is the first year in a while there isn't a house that I'm like, man, I would never touch that thing again. Because previous years there's been plenty of those, especially last year. But scare zones are great, shows are great. Food is, again, really a high point for me this year. I just think it's really solid, and I think they did such a great job. And again, houses, the production value on these ones, big sets, especially in RT stuff. I didn't say Artiste is my favorite house. And costume design this year is another big high point. Makeup and costume this year are hitting it hard. They just clearly got the money. Again, last year, I don't completely blame the Horror Nights team. They clearly were getting budget cut due to Epic Universe. But this year, they really came back swinging, and I hope they can keep this up in future years. So thanks for watching. Again, leave those tips and suggestions down below. Let me know if you disagree with any of them. I would love to hear it. But again, thanks for watching. I hope this video brought a little more joy into your day, and we'll see you guys next time.